Good morning and welcome to this week's live broadcast of Tourismus Namibia, the weekly show that we bring you for a while now. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung and the Tourismus Namibia magazine. And before I go further into the show, just remember it's a month from now, this very Saturday, we will have reached the point where the Namibia Tourism Expo has been taken place for the past 4 days, and where on that Saturday we will have a look at the finalists in terms of people who win prizes. We'll have the Bride of the Year, and we'll work our way towards that afternoon show where we have many people coming in, artists. Jerusalem, I suppose, is on everybody's mind, so we'll have these guys around there and having a great time. So just make a big note, from the 4th to the 7th of November, we'll have the Namibia Tourism Expo 2020. And it will happen. We're deep into organizing it, and yes, we invite you to come. It will be a limited number that will be allowed, but so much more to enjoy, especially, like I said, because we've got the entertainment show in there. During our show today, again, as is normal, we've got our 3 main categories. Number 1, the topics, destinations, and then obviously to the point. So before we proceed to topics, let's just have a look at the marketplace. Right, and I've got a bit of a grudge at the moment, and I need to speak about it, and maybe whoever listens must decide whether you can change something about it. It's possibly more appeal than so much a grudge. So our Namibian government is trying its level best to revive tourism, and you will see later on in an interview that we're bringing today. You get that confirmation of the fact that everybody is working very hard to get our tourism going. And they're bending over backwards to accommodate tourists and visitors, and we're waiting for these people to be welcomed back into the fold. But somehow I just get that feeling as if the governments on the outside are sometimes continuously changing regulations at a pace where ours can't keep up. So it's always, once we've reached a point and found a good solution, we suddenly have to sort of play a catch-up game again, and I'm not much into it. So being the editor of the Allgemeine Zeitung, I actually spent last weekend working through some figures, and it was very interesting. Now, the example that I worked out was I made a comparison of COVID cases in Germany specifically, because that obviously is more related to our readership, and I compared it to Namibia. And so I translated that statistic for your quick perusal, and it's on the screen there now. Now, obviously, it's not up to date. This was a screenshot of something that we brought on last Monday. So the German figures are from 2nd of October, the Namibian ones of the 4th of October, which was the Sunday. It doesn't really matter that much. What I was trying to do here is, we're talking of 83 million people compared to 2.7, and I wasn't aware that our estimate had actually gone up to that extent. I was still working on 2.5 originally, but that doesn't matter. We're talking of two areas, the one being 357,000 square kilometers, and the other one almost 3 times as much, 825, let's say 2.5 times that much. Okay, so the population density for Germany is 232 people per square kilometers. We've got a mere 3 people there. And now it becomes interesting, because if we look at people infected with COVID, Germany's number I couldn't confirm independently from the Robert Koch Institute, but I got Statistica, they call it Statistica DE, so that was the site where I got that number, 24,500, and ours at that point were 2006. So if we look at the percentage of the population of the 83 million further up, you will see it's at 0.03%. We don't compare as well as Germany, but then let's face it, we're talking third world as opposed to first world. Not that it's an excuse, but I think it's much more difficult for our people to play the game that Germany is playing at the moment. So it's 0.07%, which in a comparison to Europe actually does quite well, because remember, Germany is one of the upper level countries in terms of COVID control. Right, so here comes the interesting part. Infected persons per square kilometer, and this is the reason why I say you can't have one solution being affected in each and every country. I mean, they've got 0.07 people per square kilometers. We've got 0.002. So I need 500 square kilometers to find a person, a complete person that's infected. I mean, how far apart do you want to put these people before you start realizing that you can't compare these two one-on-one simply based on number of people being infected? I mean, the bottom then speaks to itself, you know, total COVID cases conducted. I think the important part there is really, if you look at newly affected, and this is important, newly infected per 100,000 over the past 7 days, there's an average then was 15. I think it's actually going up at the moment. Ours was 22, and ours has a trend downwards because at the moment our figures are lower. And the problem in my case, well, the problem as I see it, is if you look at European standards, and Germany specifically declares that, is if you've got on average 50 newly infected people per 100,000 over the past 7 days, then you are regarded as a high risk area. That is, and then they put a little tail to it and they say, but also if your systems are not quite 100% and you actually haven't achieved the 50 but maybe a bit lower, but then that could be to your detriment as well. Now my argument is, if I take 22 times 2, at 44 we would still not be just close to the 50. And this is why we're going down. So as a percentage of the total population, this is where it becomes interesting. 0.32% in Germany, and ours 0.35%. So that's people who've recovered from COVID. So that's not a bad comparison. Germany has lost 9,500 people, we 123 people. But if you look at that percentage, how many have died because of COVID? Theirs is over 3%, ours is just above 1%. So my argument is, if you look at these things, somewhere out there, there must be a person who surely must look at this principle and agree with me that it is not one size fits all. We need to find different solutions for Namibia, and I don't really know that Namibia would be applicable to the whole of Africa. I would think not. But then that's exactly what we need to do. We need to find solutions for countries and not for the world and try to apply this to everybody. Because the other side of my argument was, We're entering a very warm summer. Believe me, it's very warm already in Namibia. So we're entering a very warm summer, and in summer generally people do not go sick here. That's not the time when we have flu. And we don't, I'm quite sure our COVID tendency is going down at the moment because it's the same trend we saw in Europe. When the summer months came, the numbers went down. So now everybody's talking of a second wave. Here's the news. Namibia will only have its second wave next year when it goes cold again. So to now suddenly say, yeah, because there's a second wave overseas, there must be a second wave in Namibia, it does not apply. So I totally do not agree to what happens here. Maybe there's somebody else out there who also wants to look at it. And the reason why I'm making this appeal is Namibia has been very successful in doing conservancies. We have promoted to our people that don't worry, don't change into agriculture, don't go automatically and fell all the trees and have big maize fields, don't go and automatically decide everything has got to be cattle country. Make use of what we have, our natural resources, whether it's a forest, whether it's good bushveld or whatever. Make use of the lion, elephants, whatever, buffalo, whatever you find in your area, conserve it and preserve it for humankind. That's why we've got rhinos, and that's why we've got lions and elephants and all these other thingies that they don't exist in so many parts of the other world, of the rest of the world. So now we go and we preserve this. And this is not a switch of a button, either the lights are on or not. Once these animals are gone, because the people suddenly realize that there is no support for this conservation idea, once they've lost faith in that, then that natural resource is gone. And when it's gone, because then we have a whole lot of cattle herders in Namibia, sheep herders, whatever. Conservation will be lost forever. And this is one country that really still has a lot to offer in that regard. So I truly feel that whoever's out there and continuously climbs on that bandwagon about having to preserve wildlife, it's now your turn to support us when we need tourism to pull us through this heavy time. And this is an appeal, and I still feel it's a reasonable appeal. So I hope somebody's listening out there who's got some decision power, because we need your help. Right, on a lighter note, we've got the SPCA. SPCA, obviously, people always just think, yeah, okay, that's your dog and your cat and whatever. No, SPCA goes much further than that. We're talking of farm animals, even wildlife. So the photos that you saw just now, the older one was of Mr. Theo Bierberg. He was laying the foundations 50 years ago for the SPCA in Swakopmund. So they've had their 50th anniversary this week. And the subsequent photo actually shows you this is the team that is there today. So good luck to them, well done. And I know that the other day they had some very bad news, and as far as that the town was not prepared to support them more than they did in the past, even though the COVID had sort of taken a very hard, it had a very dire impact on their finances, because suddenly there's so much more animals that need looking after, because people are simply abandoning their animals. They don't have the money to look after them. So let's hope that Swakopmund Council will just rethink what they've done there and maybe just help them after all. Yeah, that's our topics for this week. Like I said, some food for thought. So now we go to the more pleasant part of the show, the one that I especially enjoy, and I think you obviously as well. Destinations. We bring you new ideas, holiday ideas, ideas where you can spend some time. And it's not that far away. I know holiday has been long this year. Not really that we were on holiday, but we were at home. But those of you who are planning for trips, here are some ideas under destinations. welcome back. Hi, Chloe.
Hello, Frank.
Chloe's again joined me here. Chloe Deer. She obviously writes for Tourismus Namibia. Most of you will know, those who follow our magazine and obviously this show. It's obviously not the first time she's here. She's as much part of the show as I'm. So destinations, you've got 3 ideas again for us.
Yeah, I think the view behind us today is Springbok Vlakte, which is actually on the way to our first destination that we're going to talk about today, and that's Kokerboom Kloof, which is inside the Richtersveld. And I've got to say, I mean, it is an unbelievable camping experience.
This is actually just south of the Orange River.
Yeah.
And people will be forgiven if some of them thought it was like somewhere in around about IJs or somewhere even at Namibia. Wow. But these are beautiful places.
But what's so amazing about it is how, it is so remote that your camping spots and everything, you can't, very few people actually go there because there isn't water, and so it really is, it's proper camping. You know, there's very little rainfall in the area.
This is a large region, you can see.
But actually, even though it is Kokerboom Kloof, and the Masaurus Quiver Tree Camp and Giants Playground rivals it, but it's mainly because it's the quiver trees haven't actually survived. It's actually too harsh, if you can believe it. Quiver trees. So a lot of them you'll find are stumps now. It's a shadow of its former self. But climbing up Die Toon, which is the backdrop of all the campsites, I saw dik-diks, I saw the most, dassies, all the small game that you wouldn't otherwise see. They're very shy, and so when I actually got lost when I was looking. When I was climbing the Toon and everything like that, because once you're behind one of those rocks, in the photographs they look tiny, but in person, you don't know where you are. You lose your.
That must have been quite a scary moment.
It actually was. I'm underplaying it, but I actually was. I did, because what would you do? There's no water. But that is what makes it so exciting.
But it's also a word of warning, really.
I would say so. I would say.
Look at this, it's almost like a chameleon on top of it.
It's, those rock structures, the landscape is almost Jurassic. You can imagine dinosaurs roaming there. But I haven't been anywhere before where I've felt so removed from the rest of the world. You literally feel like you could be in the center of a volcano. And so I would say, bring your own water, because obviously due to the remote location there isn't water at the campsites, and it's very rustic. So bring your own water and have some kind of a way to wash yourself.
Be more self-reliant.
Yeah, and so, but we actually weren't prepared enough for this, and we were in the middle of December, which you can just imagine the heat. We didn't end up staying for the night because we hadn't prepared, and actually we wanted to just go swim in the Orange River.
I'm surprised how clear your lines are still. So even though it was very hot,
Frank,
it was actually quite surprising to me.
But I think that's just kind of luck of the draw. But because you also shield from all the elements, all the wind, everything, so it's just scorching heat. But
I know that because I've been at Namibia myself, walking around there in December, and actually the lodge owner warned me, and I didn't imagine. I on my own drank in one afternoon 5 liters of water.
I seriously can't believe it.
It really is scorching, and it's unbelievable that. How hot the Namib really becomes. And let's face it, that's still part of the Namib.
Yeah.
It's really much the same area,
Yeah. And then following on, we've spoken about how we traveled the Sendling's Drift and returned back to Namibia. Love that border crossing, by the way. But in our most recent edition, we rode the Orange River. And one thing that is surprising, and I even experienced when I was in the Richtersveld, is the diamond mines that you find all the way along the Orange River.
Yeah, on both sides, actually.
On both sides. And they're active when you're in the Richtersveld, but when you are on the Orange River, there's some abandoned ones. And actually, my favorite campsite that we stayed at was Rudy's mine, which is also on the edge of the river, but it gives you, unbelievable placement. The rolling lawns almost feel as though that they were planted there on purpose. But we went on a hike up to, I mean, this picture shows, I mean, why I thought the Orange River was called the Orange River, because it reflects
because
the
of the
mountains and it
lighting,
looks so orange, but that's obviously not the reason. But
you wouldn't know.
Oh, I'm not sure, but it definitely, I mean, look at that.
I know for sure.
It looks.
That's actually because of the orange in the Netherlands flag.
I was convinced. I was convinced.
No, this is Dutch history, really.
So after camping in that pristine environment, we went on a early morning sunrise hike up to Rudy's mine, which is why the campsite's called that. And I mean, because it's an old abandoned diamond mine, I mean, everyone who goes there tries their luck in finding a diamond or two.
Is this like just on the river?
This is just above the campsite, and they literally left all of the equipment and just
That's
vanished.
the sad part on the one side, and on the other hand, it now becomes a bit of a novelty.
Well, the thing is that actually Ari, our guide, his friend has since taken up the contract to revive the mine again, which I find really sad because it was my favorite campsite along the river.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you think of a better location to be placed to mine? I mean, but I'm surprised. It is almost, it's so different, so contrasting to have this equipment and then this like barren landscape around you. But
it shows you how hard that life is. If you
Sure.
decide to have a mine there, you really know that you're in for a hard time.
But I mean, taking the guide, Ari took us on a step-by-step tour of how the exact process of how you would mine diamonds, mine diamonds, and it's so. I mean, it's very rare that you'd get the opportunity because you know those are usually areas that you're not allowed to go into. So it was interesting for me as a novice to actually understand
what they do.
What they do. And I'm surprised to learn that none of this equipment can be used any longer, because to me it looks like it just needs a bit of oiling. But actually my birthstone are rubies, and Ari took us into a part of the mine where using the light of your phone you can shine it into the rubble and you can find little rubies. And it was unbelievable. I mean, they are minute in size, but using the light of your phone, it's incredible what you're able to find.
You know what the people must have felt like when for the first time in the full moon they saw diamonds in
I can't even believe it.
You know, that reflected, and they thought, wow, this cannot be.
Well, I mean, it made the experience even more informative, and you know, when we were staying in the when we were staying in the Richtersveld, you know, the problem of zamazamas and everything was very real. I mean, one of the shepherds had told us that zamazamas had been shot in the bum the day before we arrived. So there are diamonds there, you know, they haven't just vanished. I mean, that river brings them down day by day. So
the people still try their luck.
They still try their luck. I mean, I didn't find a diamond, sadly, but...
you wouldn't tell me anyway.
But, I mean, look at the size of those springs. I mean, you can just...
You feel that there must be some value.
I mean, clearly but it's on the one hand, it's actually quite sad to see how it really destroys the landscape, you know. But luckily, this was hidden from view. But it'll be sad once those big lights start shining in the evenings, and you know,
and you're suddenly reminded that there are people in there.
And here you can see I was using the light to find the rubies, and I mean, it was honestly, it made the experience, you know, incredible.
That's very interesting, I must say. And to me, yes, I'm still convinced that not all of it, but I'm sure some of it just needs some oil and just revamping. I mean, surely some of the stuff can still be used, even though it wasn't used for a very long time.
But it's sad to also think, I mean, how could you possibly just abandon all that equipment?
Oh, but you go into the Namib and you do these desert trips and you'll see all over abandoned places. I mean, pretty much like Kolmanskop and Elizabeth Bay. The thing is this, much of the stuff is more expensive to ship back to where you want it to be than going there and simply buying new stuff.
Yeah, logistically, obviously, I mean...
Yeah, and especially in those areas, in those years especially, you know? And I've heard so often with mines, they've already paid everything off, it's written off, and, you know, now they start giving away some of the stuff, they sell some of it, but whatever is not really worth it, then they just leave it, and that's it. And I find it sad, because I feel there needs to be a contract, some form of deposit system, as far as I'm concerned, where they actually deposit some of their profits with the mines and energy or whatever it is. It can be a trust account. They just need to provide proof
to restore the landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when they close down that day, that reserve must be there. So if they want to make place and just move off, fine, then the money is there to at least appoint somebody else. I do not agree that that cannot be managed. I'm sure it could. Yeah, and then we're moving back closer to home.
Back home again, yeah. To the actually, one I think is one of the best kept secrets of Namibia. Well, at least I don't think it's very well known. But staying at the farmhouse in the Namabrand Reserve is a spectacular place to spend with your family. I mean, it accommodates 10 people in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there isn't even there is nothing. I mean, I'm even losing my words. But what's so wonderful is that you really are steeped in the history of the land, because they've kept all the original kraals and the original outhouses and fences. So you really get a sense of how harsh the environment really is, and how difficult it must have been to actually farm caracal in that remote environment. But it's having a water hole only 50 meters from your house.
And then
the visitors that you have. I mean, I was very surprised to see giraffe, and they came every single day. I think because
I would as well if that was that I got.
I think because obviously it's such a remote location, and the original farmers had to borehole water for the caracal. It is one of the few places that they're able to get water.
Let's face it, caracal was the only only sheep that you could actually have there, because they're so hardy and they're used to this sort of situation. But still, I'm actually quite glad they converted it back into a nature reserve.
I think so. I mean, it's being in that dark sky reserve, you really do not see stars like you see when you're in the middle of nowhere like that, with no light pollution.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And what I loved so much about it was that you do still get the feeling that you are immersed in the sand dunes, but you don't have the tourist population that you have in Sesriem. And, as magical as Sossusvlei is, the never-ending tourists that flock to that area sometimes does taint your experience, and sometimes you do just want to kind of get lost in the middle of nowhere on your own terms.
And this is a typical area. I mean, it's close to the hideout. It's wherever you go down there. It's close to Nadit even, that goes further down.
It's got its own dunes. It's got its own, so being able to do it on your own is also what I loved so much. Being able to just self-drive, climb the dunes. You're pretty
much left alone. I mean,
we didn't see a single soul, other than the odd farm worker. We didn't see a single soul, and that's what made it such a romantic experience. And I can just imagine going there with your whole family and really just cutting off from the rest of the world. Because having,
even as a group, we did it as three, group out of 3 people and with their families. And it's just great. Yeah.
But the sunsets what really, caught my eye. You can see here there was
this thing is photoshopped, I'm sure.
I promise, Frank, I promise you, I've never seen anything like it. It almost felt like we were in that cartoon Up, where there has balloons above the house. That cloud just hovered above our house until the sun completely set, and I've never seen anything like it. The condensation,
funny, as if it's somehow rolled up and so on.
I don't know. You can never tell with the way that the winds, and you always see those tumbling, almost like miniature hurricanes when you're there. But sunsets like I've never seen before. But stars. I mean, at this point, I hadn't practiced my star photography, so you'll just have to believe it by word of mouth.
Yeah.
But since then, I've practiced a bit more, but still.
No, we've shown photos before, and it is almost always astounding. I've got a good friend who does photos of stars as well.
It's hard.
And but he's got it quite perfected by now, and it's unreal if you can do it. I would normally just take a pinprick it and make a photo against the light.
Actually, photographs can't do it justice, and so anyway, that cloud experience was something probably you won't see again, but always wonderful to be there to capture it.
That's a nice thing. This is what will always sort of take you back to that moment. And that's really what this whole thing about tourism is about. At the end of the day, no matter what you do, whether it's a short holiday, a long holiday, whether it's a weekend or whatever you do, when you go to these places and you've got a unique thing like that.
No two experiences are the same.
And exactly. So in 10 years, you will still remember that cloud, and you will tell somebody, hey, I once experienced this.
Yeah.
And it's the experience that takes you back. I once read a report about it, and they reckon the value of photos and watching them afterwards is the fact that you transported back into that moment. And it from anew causes you to relax. Like it or not, or you won't even know it, and never mind like it or not, surely you will like it.
As you transport back into
yeah,
that time.
and memories are one of the things that make you relax. And so, yeah, this is exactly what we're trying to do here. And you've got them by the dozens now. I'm quite sure about 2 years ago you wouldn't have ever imagined having so many different impacts on your brain.
But most people say to me, Chloe, how are you still able to talk about these experiences that happened so long ago? But that is the power of photography. I mean, it can trigger your mind and
like I said, it transports you back to that moment.
Yeah.
And you know, it's what I always say, even if you're not a good photographer and you don't have the photos, it's all still in here.
Yeah.
And that is always the best. That's the best photograph. Your brain is amazing in that regard. And my wife always marvels about the fact that I will have been to a place 10 years ago and I still know how to drive there and get to know it. But it's because you somehow still remember those things. And that's just what it is. So, yeah, hope we brought you a couple of nice ideas again. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you, Frank.
And then let's repeat this next week again. Thanks. Right, those were the destinations. As you can see, one actually starts enjoying these shows ever more. Always, you need to remember that neither me nor Chloe are actually trained professionals in this game. So we learn each week, and we hope you forgive us if we make mistakes every once in a while. Hope you enjoyed the show so far. Next up, before we go there, just have a look at the marketplace, and then we've got to the point. Welcome back. As you can see, I was now joined by another person. This is Netumbo Nashandi. It's Netumbo, actually.
Netumbo Nashandi.
Okay. I'll still try it a couple of times. Anyway, Netumbo is the new chairperson of FNATA. You might remember that the papers reported about it roughly 10 days ago, I think it was.
About on the 23rd of September is when
so
I
it's
got
not that
appointed.
long ago, let's say 2 weeks. And yeah, congratulations, you're the new chairperson, lots of work waiting for you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me over here today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so tell the listeners a bit about who you are, where you come from, what is your plan with Fanata?
Okay, well, hi, I'm Netumbo Nashandi. I am from Namibia. I am half Namibian, half Zimbabwean. And I've been in the tourism sector many moons ago. Some of you may remember me from my time at Namibia Wildlife Resorts. I used to manage the European accounts. And then after that, I went on to become an activist at the Emerging Tourism Enterprises Association, also known as ITEA. And that's how I came to be the chairperson at Fanata.
Okay.
Netumbo loves running a lot. I'm such a homebody. I love spending my time at home, cooking, listening to music, reading, learning, and hanging out with children.
Okay, so next time we invite you, we'll do that at the Namibia Tourism Expo for the cooking show.
Yeah, why not? Why not? You know.
Tell me now, obviously you're not alone in the committee. Have you guys met already? Have you sort of deliberated a bit?
Yes, we have. There are 7 of us on the committee. We had our first virtual exco about a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was very fruitful, and we're expecting to meet again next week sometime. We're still confirming the dates and everything. But
Okay, so now in the beginning it will be a bit more.
in the big, well, we
Especially
did
with COVID. I suppose.
exactly. It has to be a lot more, because as we all know, we're in a very challenging position as the tourism sector. It's not business as usual.
So you've had a meeting with the Minister of Environment and Forestry and Tourism this morning, and I'm sure you guys must have spoken already about the more pressing issues. What are they? Which have you identified?
Absolutely. So this morning we introduced the new board to the Minister of Environment and Tourism and to the CEO of the Namibia Tourism Board. The most pressing issue right now is the Tourism Revival Initiative. We're facing so many challenges in terms of clarity, communication downstream, and just a whole load of Pandora's box issues. But I'm happy to report back that we had a very fruitful private session with the minister today before we introduced ourselves to the media. And the Ministry of Environment and Tourism is continuing in its support to ensure that we revive the Namibian tourism economy. As of today, for example, we sent out a call to all of the tourism industry in Namibia, not just association members, because we understand that business is not usual right now. So we have to also intervene in an unusual manner. If we want to open up Destination Namibia as effectively and seamlessly as we're hoping to, we have to ensure we have synergy amongst all tourism stakeholders and amongst government and everyone. So for example, we sent out a call to all of industry to assist us in clarifying points that are a bit vague and not clear enough to the industry and to our potential future guests, so that we can continue opening up seamlessly. And it was a very great teamwork effort happened, and we're working very closely with Namibia Tourism Board and all the other associations and people that are not within aligned to associations, just to make sure that we don't waste time, for lack of a better word, because we may have wasted time over the past few months because we were not in synergy. We're not synergizing all of our issues and points.
I totally get that, but maybe we can expand a bit on that. It was always my understanding in whichever industry you looked at, whether it's the building industry, whether it's transport, whether tourism and so on, it was always my understanding from all the ministers, I'm really talking of all the ministries, that they prefer to speak to associations for the simple reason, let's face it, if you and I go to the minister and give our opinions, they are likely to differ in so many ways. And so if you've got 100 people, you've got 100 opinions, and he doesn't have the time to listen to each and everybody. That's why you really have these umbrella organizations. So I understand that there's a bit of hodgy going on in the background. People are not always happy with everything, but my argument is still, then they should involve themselves in these associations, get a job, get involved, actually tackle the problem from your side. It's almost like a person who's not happy with this church and says, okay, I'll open my own. That's not the solution, because at the end of the day, you'll have a council of churches again. So isn't that pretty much the same thing in your case?
It absolutely is. It's a very thin line. Like we need to balance out both sides of the equation. So what we suggested to do today was to involve everybody that is active within the tourism sector. Maybe you don't belong to an association, but you've received guests over the past month or so, and you have experienced, maybe you might have experienced some glitches that could be attributed to the protocols and or the regulations not being clear enough or contradicting themselves. And if we and by virtue of you not being part of an association, we cannot take your experience further to ask our stakeholders to fix that situation up for us. So what we're saying today is that, look, we really need to get tourists back into Namibia.
We do.
But we're not helping ourselves by issuing out contradicting messages and doing the back and forth between the different stakeholders and government, wasting so much time in between because we are not collating all of the points of clarity from everybody that's active within the tourism sector. So what we said was that, okay, we want Destination Namibia to thrive. That's all of our objective in the tourism sector. As for now, we need Destination Namibia to open up. We need the world to be comfortable that Namibia is open and ready to receive everyone. And in order to do that, we need to assist each other and assist our government to come up with protocols and regulations and guide them, not come up with it. I take that back because I'm not a legal person.
At the end of the day, it's their call.
It's their call at the end of the day. But if we are not organized as the sector, we are just stabbing ourselves in the foot at the end of the day. So what we're saying is, let's collate all this information together. Let's help government come up with regulations that are to the benefit of Destination Namibia. Once all the protocols are in place, once we're all comfortable with the regulations in place, once we are all understanding and interpreting the regulations the way we should be interpreting, then we can go back to business as usual. You and your association,
Exactly.
We continue on.
Talking of these associations now, I mean, so far we've got FENATA, we've got HAN, we've got TASA. Maybe you want to explain to our listeners a bit what is what in this regard.
Absolutely. So FENATA is the Federation of Namibian Tourism Associations. It is the umbrella body of all associations that are engaged within the tourism value chain. Our members include HAN, which is the Hospitality Association of Namibia, TASA, the
It's Tour Association, Tour
Operators Association of Namibia. We've got ITEA, Emerging Tourism Enterprises Association.
That's where you were previously?
Exactly. That's where I'm still there. I haven't
but I mean, you don't have that much of an active role anymore.
Exactly. And then we have CARAN, which is a Car Rental Association of Namibia. Then we've got NAFA, which represents the professional hunting industry. Then we've got TAN, which is the Tour Guides Association of Namibia. And then we've got ANTA,
whatever it is.
I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is. It is what it is. I need to get my way around it still. And then we've got the B&B Association. We've got Air Namibia.
Oh, so there is a B&B Association.
Yes.
Is Airbnb already part of that or not really?
I don't think.
So these
I'm
are
not
all
sure.
the
I'm
future
not sure of
musics
that.
that are coming out from the woodworks now, I suppose.
It seems like it. So in total, FENATA right now has 11 associations, or we are umbrella bodying 11 different associations, and our primary objective is to be the voice of the private sector to government, and to also assist Namibia Tourism Boards, feed Namibia Tourism Boards so that they can market Namibia as a destination effectively. We also have a mandate that we can represent the private sector and communicate with international tourism-related bodies.
Okay.
So our mandate is
so you can actually
quite
have a good look at joint ventures and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're considering is we're exploring how we can entice more. We're exploring how we can entice more membership within the FENATA umbrella. I don't have a concrete set plan to share with everybody
over time,
now.
once you settle, you start looking at the individual organizations, have a membership drive and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. So where do you see your strongest role and contribution towards this whole thing?
How do I contribute? I am a very passionate tourism person, and I bring a fresh energy to the tourism plate. And also I believe, because I have experience of both sides of the tourism cake, if we're speaking to emerging tourism enterprises, and also having worked with private sector in the past.
Yeah.
So I think I bring a needed balance to the tourism cake, for lack of a better word.
And I wouldn't be surprised if FENATA over time has to take a much stronger role in supporting emerging tourism. This is really a pet project of mine. I suppose some of the listeners will be bored by now, but one of the things that's always struck me is, and it's a favorite pastime of mine, the 4O regions typically. We send people to Cocoland, we send them to Kavango. So left and right, we send them all, and in between we send them to Etosha. But for one or another reason, we somehow don't get it right to send them up to Oshana, or Oshikoto, or Hangwena, whatever, and somehow get them together. And I feel it's a hidden paradise, really. I've been there. I've done some wild camping. I've done gone to Nana, and even there you find some very nice camping sites. Of Congo, if you look at those areas, you can do wild camping. People are very nice, and they're not different to when you do wild camping in Bushmanland or in Cocoland. So I feel there needs to be a much stronger role in that regard, because those people are missing out on an opportunity, really.
I agree with you on that point, and it speaks to us marketing Namibia in a diversified manner. There's so much more to Namibia, to the Namibian tourism product that we're bringing to the table.
Exactly, they're not only lions and elephants.
There's our communal conservancies. Exactly. Namibia is a success story in conservation circles. We're the first country to have protected areas listed within our constitution, or to have our constitution protect national parks. I think we're now clocking up at 44%. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when we hosted the Adventure Travel World Summit, and I was also involved in that team, and worked with fantastic humans there. And at that time we were at 42% of our land mass is protected. I believe we're now reaching 44%. So that's something that we can be extremely proud of.
Okay, let's face it, there's the Namib involved also and so on. That takes obviously quite a large portion, but I totally hear you, and I feel, I always have to smile when I look back years ago. This one guy suggested we turn the whole of Namibia into one solid tourism
Game
park.
reserve,
Game
yeah.
reserve. No, let's not go there.
No,
that
please.
won't work because we still have to eat and do things. But still, I think where it makes sense, we should at all times do it.
Exactly.
But what cheeses me off a bit at the moment is that we've got this sort of thing. We're inviting people here, opening all our systems, streamlining them, and then it almost seems as if on the outside there seem to be people who somehow always find another little piece that could make it impossible, you know, and then I get a bit agitated for the simple reason. I've actually written an article, and it's part of what I present at the moment, is if you look at square kilometers, I've worked it out last week on the weekend. Square kilometers in Namibia, if you take a population density of infected people per square kilometer, it's 0.02 people per square kilometers.
Lucky us.
So you would have to get 50 square kilometers together to have one person infected. Now, how far apart would you want people? I mean, so I totally get it when people say that there are some areas that are dangerous or should be avoided or whatever. Give a warning, by all means.
Yeah.
But don't shoot down a whole country that has so huge and many opportunities to take people and then not have them in there.
Absolutely in full agreement with you. We have the potential to tap into our arts and cultural tourism, mineral resources tourism,
And people
agricultural
in the south
tourism,
and, up in the north.
experiences. There's so much more to the Namibian tourism cake, and I'd like to challenge the Namibian public, get involved in the tourism sector, start up a tourism related business, just get into it so that you can also feel like you're adding value to our
and
tourism
enjoy.
economy. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's my favorite
I've noticed
corny,
already.
catchy line.
Okay. Just one last question to you.
Yeah.
And I know that I actually found it sad that comments such as those were made, but sometimes one needs to face them. One of the things came when you were elected to an industry that is, whether we like it or not, still to a large degree held by white people. I think basically because most of them were involved in building it, and that's where your emerging industry is so important. But I just found it a bit cynical of some people to say, oh, they've just included her because she's black. What would you say to these people?
Well, look, it's a fair. I suppose it's a fair perception. It's fair enough, you know, that perception is out there because that is what the industry and people have been experiencing. We have to acknowledge things as they are. Living in denial and under a rock does not serve us well. However, having said that, I don't care for that type of criticism. The work will speak for itself. I'd rather focus on the issues rather than the personalities behind. But it's important to address that elephant in the room, that I'm a token appointment, or Fenata needed a black face on there to capture the emerging side and so forth. Let those conversations keep on happening. It's fair enough, but also let the work speak for itself.
Yeah, let it not hold you up in what you're doing, but rather to enhance it and make use of the opportunity and get right what was wrong so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish you all the best of luck for that, and thank you for coming in and having this conversation with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, good luck, and to your colleagues as well.
Thank you so much.
Right. Right, a pleasant interview there with Nutombo Nashindi. I will still have another go at pronouncing her name right. I'm sure I'll get it right over time. I found it very refreshing. I'm glad that Finata has got a new blood, new ideas. I mean, it's not only as if she's the only one. She's got a couple of people helping her, and I'm quite sure that the old board members are still prepared to help and assist where there is a need. We need every piece of expertise at this point in time. So glad to see that they're going places, and we wish them well. That brings us to the end of our show. So have a nice weekend. I wish you to remain healthy. Very important. COVID is still among us. Keep healthy, wash your hands, and stay well. See you next week.